did a gecko and I started shading outside of it. So I did the line work, and then I jumped onto the shader, and I had lime green, and like, let's say like this is the gecko. I like wasn't looking, and I just went like this, and just the way I was like stretching, I thought like this was inside the gecko. So I just started like whip shading like lime green, and then I pulled my hand away, and there was like just giant green whip shade marks, and the guy didn't see it though. So I was like, yo man, you know, it would look real cool. I was like, if this thing was sitting on some leaves. And he was like, yeah. I was like, I'm not gonna charge you, man. He's like, yeah, I'd love some leaves. So I just put a big leaf there.
To truly know where tattoos got their start in America, one would have to travel back to the Civil War, where Irish immigrants who fought bore ink bravely. These tattoos were most likely done by a man by the name of Martin Hildebrandt, the man considered to be the first owner of a tattoo shop in America. Hildebrandt was a pioneer in the art of tattooing and started far back in 1846. However, Hildebrandt was most prominent during the Civil War, even being allowed to travel from camp to camp, Union or Confederate, freely, as he tattooed everyone who wished. It was not until 10 years after the war where Hildebrandt made his mark on history. In 1875, he opened up his own tattoo shop in Lower Manhattan. This was the first of its kind. Never before had a man had a shop where patrons could come in and be tattooed freely. Hildebrandt manned the shop for 10 years until he was arrested and transferred to an insane asylum in 1885, dying there 6 years later in 1891. Tattoos got its start. It found its first home, the circus. While it may seem like a bad place to start becoming popular, tattooing owes a lot to the circus. For at least 70 years, tattooed people were employed by the circus to be looked at in awe. It even got to the point where rival circus groups would attempt to have their quote-unquote tattooed attraction be more fully tattooed than the competition. Jean-Baptiste Cabri is the first person to be tattooed in the circus in 1804, but his death 18 years later means he had little to no impact in the world of tattooing. But from 1804 it grew immensely, and as the century got on, more and more people got tattooed and joined the circus. Names such as the Zebra Man and the Great Constantine were synonymous with both tattooing and the circus. Tattoos were finally being shown to a mainstream American audience, even if solely for shock value.
If you really want a true classic tattoo, you'll have to go back in time and cross the Pacific. When your tramp steamer hits the port of Honolulu, hop off and head straight to Chinatown. Soon you'll hit Hotel Street. You'll know this by the sudden progression of red poppin' hookers, boozed up sailors, and general sanctioned mayhem. That's where you'd find a man with a white t-shirt, an oily gray pompadour, and ink-splattered Frisco jeans, known to all as Norman Keith, Sailor Jerry Collins. He's the man many see as the master of the deftly crafted, boldly lined, balls-forward old-school tattoo, the kind fueled by the devil-may-care appetites of men far away from home. He's the man who took these classic designs, known as Flash, and incorporated the Asiatic styles born from his years of travel on the high seas. To a generation of tattooers, he's simply just the man. Old Ironsides, Hori Smoku, Sailor Jerry.
Tattoos were more socially introduced to the United States around the time of the Second World War, and became popular during that time as well. A mix of patriotism and being in the face of death led whole platoons of the Navy to get tattooed, or what they called controlled abrasions. Norman Keith Collins tattooed those in the Navy who were docked in the area, often doing nautical-themed pieces. However, he is more commonly known as Sailor Jerry. While truly a Navy tradition, this can be seen as the start of tattooing in the modern age. He was a pioneer tattooing for look's sake, and it grew. From him, many other integral members of the tattoo growth started, such as people as Don Ed Hardy and Lyle Tuttle, names that are widely known in the community of tattooing, came into spotlight, all due to the inspiration drawn from Sailor Jerry. From there, tattooing magazines started being published. This spread the word of tattooing and inspired more artists while showing off the work of others. Magazines provided an outlet for people such as Don Ed Hardy, a chance to show their work to a larger audience. Ed Hardy's premier magazine, Tattoo Time, gave those who were previously unaware of tattooing a glimpse of what they are. Furthermore, Tattoo Time inspired the next generation of tattoo artists, showing a younger audience what tattoos were all about. For a long time, in America, only certain people had tattoos, and they were looked down upon for having them. Those people were often considered dirty or were associated with criminal activity. Tattoos were nearly always associated with sinful lifestyles, full of drugs, sex, and crime. While tattoos have gained popularity in recent decades, it has had trouble shaking its stigma associated with it. Tattoos are seen as unprofessional and not fit for a work environment. Studies prove this theory, as participants were asked to assess job candidates based on their pictures, some of which were altered to add a neck tattoo. Inked candidates consistently ranked lower despite being equally qualified. This bias against tattoos is still wrong. Even with the rise of tattooed Americans, this fear of judgment puts many off of getting tattoos. Tattoo discrimination reached a peak in New York in 1961 when tattooing another human being was deemed unlawful. The government of the time clearly was against the art, saying it was a health concern and making very weak links to an outbreak of hepatitis B. This clear bias. This helped form a close-knit group of people who later became the tattoo community of New York City. The ban was lifted in 1997, a long time after it should have been.
Wonder, like, in my head, like, okay, why did you get this? Like, do you know, like, when you get old and you're like, in your 70s or 80s, and then, like, your skin is like all wrinkly, and then you have this tattoo, it's like, ugh, it's like,
is KK in white underneath, and this is in my dad's handwriting. I got it from a birthday card he wrote me.
I see KK in white underneath. That's very cute.
And
I
then
never
this
saw that
is,
before.
And I'm tat-free.
I was going to say, because I had this discussion upstairs, I have always thought that you don't have tattoos anywhere.
No. Honey, would you put a bumper sticker on a Bentley?
A large reason behind people not getting tattooed was that few people knew anything about them, until the media had its say. In 2005, TLC debuted a television series called Miami Ink. This show revolutionized tattooing in America, as for the first time ever, tattoo artists and their customers were seen for who and what they actually are, which is regular people. This parallels the story of Tattoo Time, the Ed Hardy-produced magazine, showing that by simply giving the public knowledge about tattooing, its popularity will grow. The show gave an inside look to a tattoo studio, which is the first time many have ever seen the inside of one. The show grew in popularity and became a hit. Now tattoo artists are seen as people with stories, and America got behind them. This simple premise, life in a tattoo parlor, opened the eyes of many people and said to them, tattoo artists are not aliens, and it's easy for you to get a tattoo. From this, tattoos became even more socially acceptable, and are now worn by millions of Americans.
5 guys.
I'm a tattoo artist. I tattooed my mom on Mother's Day about 10 years ago.
I'm the ladies' man.
I tattoo pig feet.
I'm a nice guy.
Lots of ink.
Big money. That's what that's about.
Real stories.
I remember the guy's story more than doing the tattoo.
Watch the hit series from the US.
The life of a tattoo artist. You know how many fantasies we fulfill? I guess it's easy to become a tattoo artist these days, but it's not easy to become a good one.
Miami Ink. Only on Discovery Real Time.
14% of Americans are now tattooed, and 40% of American adults between ages 26 and 40 have at least one tattoo, totaling 45 million people.